So, hi everybody, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to a new Tech and Chips event. I am Alessandra, and I'm co-organizing this meetup with Mariela and Luca. Mariela is also here. Mariela, say hello.
Hi.
And this is the sixth of our TechExperience events. And if you want, you can watch some of them on our YouTube channel. Today, we are here with Mario Fusco.
Hi.
Thank you, Mario, for being with us.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
And we were going to talk about his job as an open source software engineer. In the first part of this event, we will listen to his story, and then there will be the Q&A session. And just a few rules before starting. Please mute your microphone if you're not speaking, and show your face in the camera if possible. And if you want to speak, please write hat in the public chat and speak only after I call you. This is just to avoid a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And we are recording the event. So if you're not comfortable with that, please turn off your camera or contact us in private. So let's start. Some words about Mario. Mario is the principal software engineer and Drools project lead at Red Hat, and also a Java champion, a frequent speaker, the coordinator of the Java user group in Milan, and the co-author of Modern Java in Action, published by Manning. And so let's start with this question, Mario. What do you mean by open source software, and why should someone contribute to it?
So by open source software means that every time I do something, today I wrote a piece of code. My piece of code has been committed this evening at the end of the day. What typically happens is that I sent our code base is publicly available on GitHub. Everybody can see it. I normally finish my job. Let's say today I've finished something. I sent a pull request on GitHub on my project, on one of the projects to which I'm participating, and there are peer reviews, so people are reviewing your code. Either you can say to a specific person that you know is in charge of evaluating and approving the software for that specific part of the code. You can ask to that specific person, please review what I've done, or some random person will review it anyway. And it can be one of your colleague, but it can be any random person around the world, really. We discuss if everything is okay, if everybody requests a change, the discussion is open, everything is open. And when everybody are happy, and of course, with everybody, I include Jenkins, the continuous integration. When everybody are happy, that the pull request is merged. So everything I do, it's public, and there are a few advantages on this, especially again for the quality of software first, because it's not only me doing something in my ivory tower, but I'm doing something that is publicly exposed to the rest of the world. So potentially everybody can give a look. It is quite often that my project is quite a niche, meaning it's sort of largely used, but the internal algorithm are not very easy to work on if you have never seen how it works internally. So the pull requests are not that frequent. But what is frequent is that people look at your code and then suggest you can improve here. Or what is frequent is that not only they report a bug, but while reporting a bug, they are allowed to debug your code, to browse into your code. So very often it happens that somebody the smarter user not only say, okay, I found this bug, but many say, oh, look, the bug is here. So they also suggest you how to fix it. Sometimes they are right, sometimes they are wrong, of course, but they have a chance to go and figure out what's going on, because everything it's open, so they can check your code, debug your code, and this is very very nice, I think. And my situation is not that common, meaning that I work for Red Hat. Okay, we have been acquired by IBM, if you know about it, last year. But we didn't sell our soul, so we are keep being the usual Red Hat, keep doing open source. Everything is open as usual. And yeah, I've seen many stages, many different way of doing open source. For instance, one wrong way I've seen of doing open source is that you have your private repository, and you push your stuff there, you comment there only with your colleague, maybe if you do. And then, I don't know, once a week, you have a public repository where you move the code from the private repository to the public one. This is not the right way of doing open source. The right way of doing open source is what I described before. The only blessed master repository is the one that is publicly available, and everything I do goes directly there. So this is the spirit of open source, sharing as much as possible. And another important aspect, I think, is that personally, I learn a lot by reading someone else's code. I read a lot. I write a lot, sort of lots of code, but I also read lots of code, and I learn a lot by reading somebody else's code and discussing it. So I can find a specific data structure, a specific solution for a non-blocking algorithm that I never thought before, and I'm able to read it from the open source of anybody else, colleagues or other projects that are not Red Hat one, and I learn a lot. So it's a lot of sharing. You give a lot, you receive a lot, and everything is open. So this is really the spirit of open source.
Okay, thank you very much. So now let's talk about your job story. What did you study, and what kind of jobs did you do to finally be the principal software engineer at Red Hat?
So yeah, I'm getting old now, so my story could be eventually quite long if I recall all of it. But I took my degree like 22 years ago now in Napoli. I'm from South Italy. I'm from a small town on the sea that is called Mondragone, that is 50 kilometers north to Napoli. So I studied in Napoli. I took my degree there in '98, but I moved away almost immediately. I started almost immediately working in Java. It was the very early days of Java. My first job was in Stuttgart, but then I had to come back to Italy because I had to do my military service. And then when I finished the military service, the same company hired me again. But in the meanwhile, they moved to Padova, so I moved there. And then with the IT bubble of the 2001, if anybody remember it, the company eventually failed. And I remember I was packing my stuff to move to Milano the day the towers came down. So I was at home packing my stuff and look at the tower coming down in September 2001. And then I moved here to Milano, and I started taking part of the community here, going to the Java user group, talking to people, doing conferences. And then I moved for a few years to Lugano in Switzerland, but it's very close to here. And then in 2011, I was a bit tired of Java at the time. I was fascinated by functional programming. I wanted to study and work in Scala, if anybody knows it. And I couldn't find anything in the zone, so in Milan or nearby Ticino. And I found a job in Berlin, and it was the early 2011, and the week after I was about to move to Berlin, my girlfriend discovered being pregnant. So I said, okay, I don't care, I will move anyway to Berlin. I stayed there during the pregnancy of my wife, so like 8 months. I pushed hard to convince her to move to Berlin, and at some point I asked her, okay, just come to Berlin for 1 weekend to figure out if you like it or not. And that weekend we had minus 22 degrees, and she decided it was not for her. Oh yeah, I decided that we had to move back to Milano because my daughter was going to born. And it was 2011. There was a big economical crisis still, if you remember. It was very, very hard to find a decent job in Milano. And this is where my open source story begins. I did a few open source project on my own in the past. Probably the most known one was called Lambda J. Was a library to do functional programming in Java in 2007, 2008. So a few years before they introduced the Lambda expression, and it was quite popular. It was an open source project. And in 2011, while I was doing the Scala experience in Berlin, I wrote a rule engine in Scala. That was really a toy project. It was just an experiment. But I presented it at the second Scala days that year. They were in Stanford, in California. So I went to the conference, presented my project. My toy project really was a toy. But the guys who was at the time the project lead of Drools, the rule engine on which now I am the project lead, saw that open source project. So yeah, open source, you can make money with open source, you can find a job with open source. This is the message. So that open source project liked it and proposed me to if I wanted to join Red Hat. Okay, and for me it has been a very fortunate coincidence because it was a fully remote job. I could come back to Milano and stay with my family. And yes, I joined the company in September 2011, and that is where my open source experience, real professional open source experience started. Because again, I did a lot open source in the past, but not being paid for doing it. And then yeah, Red Hat is a wonderful place to work. We do well, as I said, writing a rule engine implies experimenting a lot with data structure, with algorithm. So I really have lots of freedom to experiment. But at time I was alone in Milano doing this, and then from time to time they asked me to hire. The team get bigger and bigger. They asked me to hire more people, and then once again both the open source and the Java community, the Java user group, allowed me to find smart people, because if you want to be surrounded by colleagues that are eventually better and smarter than you, because it's the only way to work less on one side and to learn a lot from the other. So I from time to time I added people that I know in the Java user group Milano. So they were friends. They did work together. They were also former contributor to Drools, to the Drool engine, before being hired. So I knew that they were good. I knew how they, thanks to open source, I know how they write code. I knew how they reason about a problem. I really didn't to do any technical interview. I've never done any technical interview. And now I hired 5 of them. We are 6 now. We are in Milano. So I started alone. Now the development of the core engine of Drools is totally here in Milano. We are 6 of us again. And the whole team has been created like this. And I never repented to have hired somebody, because I already knew it. Okay, so I see this crazy interview process that they do sometimes at Google or at other big companies. I don't know, maybe Facebook or eBay, I don't know, or Amazon, and they are laughable to me. I really don't understand what's the point of that process. They have tons of false negatives and also tons of false positive, I believe. So again, yeah, open source allowed me to find the job of my dreams, allowed me to meet a lot of friends, to learn a lot, to create my own team. I really don't see any drawback in this process, and I'm continuing working this way. And yes, I was used to work from home, as I said, so I've not been really surprised by this unfortunate situation this year. I miss to meet my colleagues in person, of course, but we are doing well, because we are already used to work this way. So it's, yeah, we are living in tough times, in hard, weird times mostly, but we are going through this in a nice way, I think. And this is more or less my story. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for your story. If you have some question, you can write a hat on the chat. I will paste again the message, because if someone has come in later, didn't see it. And while we are waiting for some question, I have one that maybe stupid, or maybe someone doesn't know the answer. And if your code is on the web, how you can earn money on that? I mean,
yeah, sure. So Red Hat, all code of Red Hat is open. It's not my project. It's everything is in Red Hat is exactly as I said. Okay, we are 13,000 people now living on this, so it's not a small thing. And as I said, we have been acquired last year from IBM. and it has been the biggest acquisition in the history of information technology. They paid us $34 billions. Okay, $34 billion. So we make money out of this. Okay, how? We, of course, you don't sell the software, but you sell the assistance. You sell the SLA. So if a big company have your software in production, they want to be sure that the open source normally it's a best effort thing, meaning that if somebody report me a bug, I can fix it in 1 hour, in 1 month, or never. Okay. While if they pay the assistance, they have an SLA. So if they report something, they are assured that we will respond in a given slot of times. Okay. And this is one thing. The other thing is, of course, we have consultants. So I write the software. So basically I'm a cost from my company, but the consultant then create project out of my product, and they are paid for it. Okay, and from time to time I go in very special situation. It happens probably once a year that we have a few level of assistance, and I'm the latest level. So if nobody can understand what's going on, then I go to the customer to figure out. This happens like no more than once a year, honestly. But when happens, it's quite funny, because it means that the problem is quite hard to solve. It's quite hard to figure out what's going on, and this is something, of course, that they pay. And the other big thing that we have now is that the cloud, so the OpenShift, so all our software, so the business suite that includes the rule engine, the process engine, the mathematical optimization engine, plus all our software, Quarkus for who knows it, which is a new Java framework, plus I don't know, Hibernate, Infinispan, the Red Hat portfolio is very, very big. All our software is available on the OpenShift, and of course you pay for having your for having our software running on the cloud. So these are all the way where how we make money out of this. And of course, yeah, there are a lot of even also big companies that use my software, and I'm not making a single cent out of it. There are from time to time it happens to me to discover that big company, I cannot say the name, of course, but trust me, really big companies, for instance, also here in Italy, use Drools, and we never heard of them. Meaning that they use it as an open source project. They don't pay 1 single cent. They are happy with this situation. It's okay for them. It's okay for us. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we have a question from Alessandro Romussi. Alessandro, do you want to tell you the question?
Okay, if you prefer, Hi Mario. Potentially everyone can produce and share open source software, we know, but professional open source is another thing, I think. In fact, there are big foundations or big companies and so on. Even if there are some success stories about little companies that grew up. According to you, is open source always the best solution? For example, a little company in a very specific field without a big audience. What do you think about it?
Sorry, are you speaking about the quality of software, or are you speaking about the profitability?
Profitability.
Okay, so it's a more economical than technical.
Yeah, right. Because for quality, I think it's clear that peer reviewing is the best.
So yeah, if you are a small company or even a single person, it's very, very hard to make money out of open source. I know some success story even of single person making money out of it, so I can give you a few examples. As I said, when I lived in Switzerland, I wrote this open source library that was called Lambda J. It was used quite a lot, really. There were many companies using it, insurance company, banks in Switzerland mostly, but also I know of somebody in North Europe using it, in Belgium, in Sweden. I never make 1 single cent out of it, never. And it was quite a huge effort to maintain it, because it was all extra. It was not your day-by-day job. It was the job of your evenings or your weekend. It's something that I could do 15 years ago, but I couldn't do anymore now with a family. I mean, I wouldn't do it now. It's something that you can do not for a long time and in specific phases of your life. And I have other friends in a similar situation. There is one very smart guy, a friend of mine in Germany, who make the Vavre library. I don't know if the old Java slang that Oracle obliged him to recall Vavre. It's another very popular functional library for Java. Same situation, he never made money out of it. But for instance, there are also some isolated success story. I don't know if you know JUG, for instance. JUG is an open source library made by another friend in Switzerland. His name is Lucas Eder. And he did this open source library, which is like a lightweight object relational mapper. And he was able to make a business out of it. He is living with this now. So he did it, okay? Another success story that I can give you is the software that now we use as I'm organizing. One thing that I didn't say is that we organize some conferences that belongs to the Divox network. I don't know if you know the Divox. We organized one in Milano, which is called Voxed Days Milano. We were supposed to do it, to do the second edition last Saturday. Of course, we didn't. We have to postpone it to September. You are all invited to this. But we belong to this big network of conference. So I also organized the event in Zurich that has been cancelled, delayed to September as well. We organize an event in Lugano and an event which is very amazing once every 2 years inside the CERN in Geneva. So yeah, organize a conference inside the CERN is very amazing. And there are bigger events like the Divox Belgium with 4,000 people and the other Divox around Europe. And all these conferences now using this ticketing system made by a friend who is called Alfio. So this ticketing system is completely open source. There are other conferences, for instance, in Spain that are using Alfio without giving 1 single cent to Celestino. But there is the whole DevOps network who is paying Celestino for doing this, for manage the ticketing system for them. And now he's having he's starting doing quite a big event. He did I don't remember the name. It has been one of the biggest event here in Milan about wine. I don't remember the name. I mean, it's an event for wine sellers, but with like 12,000 people. And they use the Celestino ticketing system. Okay, so the ticketing system is open source. If you have a conference, you can download it, you can install it on premise, you can use it as you want without paying 1 single cent to my friend. But otherwise, you can ask to Celestino to manage the ticketing server instance for you, and he make money out of this. So there are, it's not very frequent, I admit, but there are small company or even one single person company that can live out of this. Okay, you know, it's very hard to say if you start doing tomorrow with if you could be good as well or lucky as well. But this happens with everything. If you think about it, why we are using Zoom this evening, really for no reason. There are tens of other video conferencing systems. Why are we using Zoom this evening? I don't know. So some kind happens. Sometimes you are lucky or unlucky with your business adventure, really, for not understandable reasons. So it's hard, Carl. It's very hard, but if you want, there are a few success stories around. This is the best answers I can give. I suggest you to do this. Probably no. But well, again, let's take the history of my friend. He was employed at Swiss Post, so the post office of Switzerland. He was full-time there. Then he started playing with this project. He asked to do part-time, so working like 4 days a week. So in the rest of the time, and a lot, of course, during the weekend and during the evening, and I helped it with it. He started doing his open source, and last year he realized that it could become his only income. He could live out of this, so he resigned to the Swiss Post, and now he's living on this. Yes. He did this at the end of 2019. We know what is happening now, so it's not a fortunate period for live conferences now. It has been lucky by this, but shit happens. But except for this, yes, you can live out of this.
Thank you. We should try Jitsi instead of Zoom next time.
No, I mentioned in Zoom just to say that, yeah, there are no understandable reason, in my opinion, for something to be extremely successfully, or extremely ignored. You see two things. This happens quite often still nowadays. You see two things. They look relatively similar, almost identical, and the one is a big success and the other is totally ignored, and it's impossible to figure out why.
Maybe it's about the options.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have a question from Salvatore. Salvatore, do you want to? to ask it?
Okay, no, just you were quoting the quality assurance part. I know my colleagues. So what about what about the quality assurance, the software quality assurance part instead of the, let's say, of the business part? You were saying before we were.
Okay, so yeah, of course we have.
Just out of curiosity, what is the conference you were talking about before that you were invited to at CERN?
The conference at CERN,
Yes.
we have this network of conferences that is called, so we have two networks of conferences. The biggest one are called DevOps. We have 6 of them now. The historical one, the biggest one is in Belgium, and usually end of November, not this year, I guess, but usually end of November. It's like almost 20 years old. And we are around like 4,000 people there. And then we have other DevOps around Europe, one in Paris, one in Poland, one in Ukraine, and one in UK. And these are the biggest event, the event that last like the DevOps in Belgium last a full week, and the other DevOps last at least 3 days. Okay. And then we decided, okay, we want to have a smaller event from the same network, but more for local people, and just a 1 day long event. Okay, so the very first one of this 1 day long event has been Voxed Days Ticino in Lugano in 2015. I started it with Celestino, my friend, the friend that I mentioned it before, doing that ticketing system, and another friend, Federico. And then we continue doing this thing in Switzerland. So we now did 3 of them, which is this one in Lugano, one in Zurich, and again, once every 2 years we do it at CERN. So we do this conference. It's a software conference that we do 1 day inside the CERN. And then we have these Voxed Days in Milano, which we started last year. And if you go to the Voxed Days website, you will see that there are around, I guess, something between 15 and 20 events a year. Most of them in Europe, but we have one in Canada, one in Singapore, one in Australia. So it's becoming quite popular. And they are all part of this network of event. Of course, I'm not going to all of them, otherwise I wouldn't have time to work, but I enjoy doing this sort of event. This is probably the thing that I'm missing the most this year. So yeah, this is the part, and yes, okay. The Vox you asked about the Voxed Days CERN, of course, it's a very special event. You know, the nice thing is that when you organize a conference, one of your concerns is to find what we call the rock star speaker, because the rock star speaker are the one that people love to listen, and also the one that sell tickets. So you have to beg them to, I don't know, big names like Brian Gates or Venkat. You normally have to beg them to ask them, come to my conference. But of course, when you say them, do you want maybe to do a conference in CERN? You don't have to say it twice. Everybody say yes. Of course, I'm coming. I will pay the flight on my own. No, I don't care. I want to be at CERN. So this is one of the very nice thing. And when we do this, we usually plan to do it in a specific slot of time, because once every 2 years, they have to stop the LAC accelerator for maintenance. And when they stop it, you can go down 90 meters down and visit it and look at it. So we of course organize the event during that month, so we can go down and see and look, so that we have physicians explain the experiment that they do. It's a fantastic environment for a geek. So this is the Voxit Days tour. You were asking something about quality assurance, maybe?
Yes, yes, yes.
So you want to know the quality assurance process of an open source project, I guess?
Exactly, exactly.
So we are quite, let's say, strict. I mean, if I'm sending up a pull request that is supposed to fix a bug, but also to implement a new feature, the pull request for sure will not be accepted or merged if it doesn't have at least one test reproducing it. So if you are fixing a bug, I need to have one unit test reproducing that bug. Otherwise, there's no chance that your pull request will be merged. Okay, and then we have of course continuous integration. So every time a pull request is sent, the all test suite is run on Jenkins to check if your pull request is breaking something. And then we have some other nightly job or jobs that work that run once a week to check other stuff. For instance, we have a job that runs during the weekend that is a benchmark suite made with JMH. So we run this every week, and we figure out if the commit that have been merged during that week for some reason caused not a test failure, or otherwise we figured this out, but if they cause performance degradation. Okay, we also don't want them. So in this way, we also catch if there are performance degradation in our software. And of course, we use the same benchmark, and we keep enriching it to check if we are doing well with performance improvement, because it's a very key thing for a rule engine. So, and of course, we have a quality assurance team. Our team is based in Czech Republic, in Brno. It's quite big. Well, there are, I guess, 10 people working on it, but for the whole business automation suite. So the rule engine plus the process engine plus the mathematical optimization engine. And they write their own tests. They maintain the Jenkins, the continuous integration environment. They write benchmarks, run them, compare the result, and they are also smart enough to send to open a bug report. And of course, when they open the bug report, they open it with a proper unit test reproducing the bug as well. So yes, we are quite well organized in this. Of course, this work well because again, we are a big team now. You have to do the same thing at scale. If you are not 50 person like us, but if you are 5 person, you have to do, or 1 person even, in the cases that I mentioned it before, you should be able to do the same thing at scale. The only thing to do it is, of course, automate. You cannot check everything by hand. The most you automate, the more you can you can check and you can ensure that your latest commit is not breaking the build.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So I see a raised hand by Emanuel Mazzilli. I don't know if it's a mistake or not.
Hi. No.
Hi.
I have a question. Hi, Emanuel. Nice to meet you. Okay. My question is, do you think that Docker somehow changed the dynamic in open source? Let me explain. So, like back in the days, like putting your code out there and having people to download, it was like kind of IKEA style. Like that's the code, download it, set it up, good luck. Versus now, when you have more modern code base like GitLab that give you like a Docker image. So one of my questions, like back in the days, one of the selling point of getting to the enterprise layer and pay for the open source was more of like, I don't want to go through all the DevOps, putting it together, you know, have the code, but there's like a lot of work to be done. Now with Docker, that part is somehow automated, that you can just Docker compose up or whatever, and everything runs locally. So do you think this somehow changed or raise the bar or make the open source world more different in a sense that you have to provide more value for people to pay versus back in the days that DevOps was like kind of a part of selling?
So yes, but very slowly, very slowly, or very much slower than I thought, meaning that all the big customer that I have, all the big user of Drools are not going through that path. I mean, they are still downloading the jar from Maven and using them, integrating them. Yes, I mean a Docker image can change something. I guess it also, you know, it depends a lot on the kind of software you do. Okay, if you do a very I don't know, something like Netty, let's say, some or some message broker, something that heavily used that have a big impact on DevOps, like this kind of software. Yes, Docker is a game changer. In my case, a lot less. I mean, if my stuff is not a networking stuff, it's an algorithmic thing. Okay, it's huge huge based on algorithm and data structure again. So it's probably not the most common thing. But again, in my experience, yes, of course, we provide a Docker image of our stuff, but it didn't change our life that much. So probably I'm not really the right person to answer this question, but mainly because of the specific nature of my project. But for me, no. Yeah, for me, it wasn't a so huge thing.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so now we have a question from Natalia.
Hello. So I have a question. It's a little bit more on the organizational side. So how do you organize yourself in the open source way of working? Are there teams? How do you collaborate? Maybe who sets the priorities of what you're doing? So yeah, I'm curious how it works.
So that's probably the hardest part. You have to 100%, and this is not easy. You have to 100% trust on your colleagues, and this is why it worked from me to bring in people that I already know in my not working life, in the Java user group, because I trusted them. Okay, so open source gives you lots of freedom. but you also have to be very to impose some rule on yourself. Okay, Red Hat, it's very specific in this, and my project is even more particular, meaning that in 9 years nobody never asked me what do you have done today, what do you have done this week, what do you have done this month. It doesn't work like this. Okay, I experiment a lot. I'm totally free of do my experiment. Let's say 8 times out of 10 my experiments are just bullshit. I do it, I waste a week behind it, and I throw it away. It's research. It works like this. Okay, so Einstein said if we knew what we are doing, we didn't call it research. Okay, it's research. And from time to time you find something clever, your idea is cool, and you issue a patent. I have a few. You write an academic paper about what your last invention, or in some way you improve your software or find a new way to use it, and so on, or add a new feature that people want. But again, it's especially in our situation, there's a lot of research. So if somebody would ask me what you have done this week, 8 times out of 10, the only answer that I could give is I tried something and I throw it away. So that's why nobody asked really. But this worked for me in the very early days of my job. I said I was alone. I was the one-man show here in Milan. I was alone maintaining and developing the rule engine. So this worked for me in the very early days. Now we are 6 years in Milano. I'm coordinating them. So yes, you need a lot more of coordination. You need to talk to people. I try to apply the same principle to all of them, so they are totally free to experiment what they want. We share a lot, we discuss a lot. We were used to meet in the office when we could. We do a lot of calls now, of course. But yes, we have a plan. We don't do random thing, of course. We have a plan. We meet together. We decide what to do. We decide what to experiment. But an experiment is an experiment, so it can go well or wrong. Okay. So we have a lot of shared document when we write article. So also that well, that's not really open source, meaning that not everybody from the outside can see that document, but many of the team and many outside of our team, but in Red Hat, can see the same document. So we have a lot of this brainstorming document where we write what we are planning to do, and then somebody else review the document, add comments or modify something. And when we have something that is more or less clear in our mind, we start writing code. Okay. And this is how it works in my team. Again, I'm not entirely sure this is totally fully replicable with a different project, with a different team, in a different environment, and with different also economical constraint, I would say. I'm not entirely sure this could work in all cases. I'm not selling this. I'm telling you what I do, but I'm not saying do the same. I don't know if it will work for you. And again, you have to find a good environment that allows you to work in this way. And the reason why I love Red Hat is because I found this environment. Thanks.
Thank you. So do you have other questions? If not, I can go with the last one. Just for a beginner, for example, I see a project, an open source project that I like, I would like to contribute in. And then what? I clone it and I start it on, or I have to ask to someone?
So this is a thought question, and again, it's not probably also in this my story is a bit unusual, but again, this is not the way how I started doing open source. The way how I started doing open source myself is inventing, creating my own open source project from scratch, which is another possible approach. Okay. And then, yes, it is, of course, quite more usual that then instead you start participating to an existing project. Okay. And the way you do it, yes, every project has its README page that mostly explains you how we are supposed to contribute to the project if you want. And you can start with small contribution. You know, most of the time, for instance, why you start to contribute to my project, to my rule engine? Because you use Drools in your day-by-day job. You start knowing it. You learn how it works. You learn how it does. Probably the way you start and doing it is that you find something, a weird behavior, something that is obscure, something that is not well documented. So you can contribute with the documentation page or fixing existing documentation. This is a very common way to start, and it's very welcome. Or you can contribute with a bug report, hopefully with a meaningful unit test. That's very cool. And you start like this. So documentation and bug reports, and then you start studying the internals. And again, I strongly suggest you to do this with open source projects, simply because you learn a lot. Okay, if you are a writer of novel, you have to read a lot of novel, and if you are a writer of software, you have to read a lot of software. So you get in the loop. Okay, you get in the loop with documentation, with unit tests, but also with performance improvement. There are a few people that are very concerned and very good in performances optimization. They do amazing job. From time to time, they do disaster as well. They insist, look, my thing is faster than yours. Yeah, okay, it's faster, but it is producing the wrong result. Sorry, it's faster in doing something wrong. So it happens also, stuff like this, right? So, but the idea is that yeah, this is the way typically you start contributing. Again, it's not my personal history, but both things can work. If you have an idea that nobody else have implemented, you can try to start your own project. Otherwise, you can join an existing one. And if you want to give a look at Drools, you know, Drools is not exactly, if you are a novice programmer, I don't want to discourage you, but probably I wouldn't suggest to go into Drools as your first open source project, because the algorithmic part, which is the core of the project, is it's not immediately evident. Okay, and if you want to contribute to that part, or to even figure out how it works, it could be easily to become frustrated. but there are tons of, I'm not discouraging you to give a look at Drools. If you are into data structure, algorithm, I don't know, parallel algorithm, non-blocking algorithm, you are super welcome. It depends on the area of your expertise, but for sure, whatever is the area of your expertise, whatever is the language you like, I'm sure you can find the right open source project. And if you can, it's the right occasion to create your own.
Okay, thank you. So if you don't have any more questions, I think we can say thank you very much to Mario. And thank you very much to everybody for being here. You can unmute your microphones.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you.
a lot. In this time,
Yeah,
Thank you.
I really need
Thank
this kind of social iteration, even
Thank you.
remotely. I hope to meet you in person.
Thank you.
Again, hopefully we are doing this conference in Milano in September. You are very welcome to come if you want. I cannot tell you, for evident reason, it will be probably smaller than last year. We will do better next year, but it will be interesting anyway. We have a lot of smart people, including, I don't know, another open source famous maintainer is maintainer of Jet, if you know the web server. I think you know. Who is Simone Bordei, who is in Torino, and there are a lot of smart guys here in Milano, and people coming from Napoli, from Rome, from South Italy in general. So it will be probably, we will not have the international rockstar this year, but we have a strong community. We rely on it, and I will be happy if you could come and give it a try. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you everybody again, and have a nice evening.
Bye.
Let's hope to meet as soon as possible.
I hope so.
Bye, guys.